Who's ever heard of Bitcoin out here? Right? Pretty popular. How about Ethereum? All right, how about the Dogecoin? People familiar with that? All right, some familiarity out there. So who owns or has traded any of these cryptocurrencies? Put up your hands. Just a few of you. Me too. I'll admit it. Who has heard the word DeFi or decentralized finance before? That's getting popular, popularizing that a little bit. What about the blockchain? All right, starting to get into the vocab, into the parlance. NFTs, non-fungible tokens. Anyone? Anyone out here buy or sell a non-fungible token, Julia? Okay, I can't wait for yours. What about Web3? Everybody heard about Web3 a little bit? All right, we're going to get into some of those topics here. This, my friends, this is the brave new world that we're talking about in finance. We're kind of in this world, and we're heading towards it in a lot of ways. The future of how we live our lives, the way that decentralized finance, the way that blockchain, the way that some of these tokens may play a part in our financial futures and in the way we do a lot of things, that is a very big deal, and it's a very big deal in the financial services industry where we hang out. So we brought two great guests onto the program today, and we're taking two different approaches to this. We're going to get into both of them. I want to welcome to the stage Givince Cadet. He's pursuing his MBA at Fordham University at the Gabelli School of Business. Did I say your name right or wrong?
Yeah, close.
Gigi.
Yeah, Gigi's fine.
Gigi, welcome.
Thank you.
And my man, Lamar Big Mar Wilson, founder of Black Bitcoin Billionaire. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here.
Yes,
Grab seats.
Are you getting out? You got the first one.
All right.
All right. Lamar.
Yes, sir.
Gigi, thank you for being here. Lamar, I want you to set the stage for us because age before beauty around here. But you've been in this game for a while. A lot of folks, you saw the show of hands. They know what Bitcoin is. They know what Ethereum is. They know what the tokens are. And a lot of folks, including me, were blinded by the light. But there's a very big difference between that, right, and what's really happening in terms of the foundations of decentralized finance, blockchain, and cryptocurrency. Set the stage for us, and then we're going to dive in.
Yeah, so Bitcoin being the one, the godfather, pretty much came around and it established itself as money. Bitcoin's a little bit different than what we see with the other cryptocurrencies that have come behind it because Bitcoin wants to be money. If you look at the other cryptocurrencies that have come behind it, they're built on platforms like Ethereum, Solana, Cardano. These want to be world computers. And so wanting to be a world computer is a different valuation, right? It's a different value proposition than wanting to be money. And so you start seeing the differences in that. And what we've seen is this progression into that. And what we also have seen is that people have had a hard time actually making the world computer thing work at scale. And so those are the things that are still, we're trying to work out in the system, right? And I think that as we keep moving forward, people have gotten more into the speculation. I think we were talking about that than they have even into the technology. But this is an asset class where you have to have an understanding of the technology to know what you're putting your money into. If you don't know, it's like buying a house that's on sand. And if you're buying a house on sand, when the storm comes through, as we've seen with a lot of these protocols, people lose a lot of money. All right, so you just have to be very careful, and I think as we talk, we'll start breaking some of this down.
Yeah, I want to get into the whole smart coin, dumb coin thing in a little bit, but I want to get to you, Gigi, because you were in the advertising world, right? And you decided to make that big pivot, go to business school, and you're studying blockchain and cryptocurrency. What are you actually studying at Fordham University? What's the degree in, and what made you make that turn?
Yeah, so my degree at the Gabelli School of Business is blockchain technology. They're covering it not only in finance, but as you probably know, blockchain has access in a lot of different verticals, right? And so the way that they're teaching it is from like a zoomed out view of where people are at it with today. Like you saw in Tyrone's video, they really start with the history of money, right? So going from barter to precious metals to paper money, and then to banks, and then to the gold standard, off the gold standard to the 2008 crash. And so they really put it into perspective for you that digital money isn't just, new technology pops up every day, and Bitcoin really didn't just come up out of nowhere, right? It came from a necessity of things. And again, in this video, he mentioned trust, right? And so understanding that, when you and I agree on the value of a dollar, and then certain institutions or that agreement is not, being honored in a way through influxes of cash or whatever, so have you. Bitcoin kind of rose from that, and that people had been working on digital money before that. And so the way that they've taught the program is really set the stage to let you understand, one, how we got here, why we got here, and then we kind of jump into what it is.
Right.
And for me and for other people who are looking to educate themselves on it, I think that kind of process will make it seem less scary, because you'll see all the steps on how we got here, and then you can see what the vision is.
One way that helped me understand it through all of this is thinking about blockchain as sort of a highway, right? That highway system, and then the coins and tokens are maybe the vehicles that go on that. But when you think about blockchain, and given what you've learned, what kinds of industries could it apply to? Or maybe it could apply to so many, what couldn't it apply to? But let's start with what it could apply to.
So blockchain, honestly, I haven't heard of a vertical that it really can apply to. So healthcare, telecommunications. I really am a big fan of music, so I kind of dug into how does blockchain affect music, and where are the use cases there. And then once I saw really the scope of the underlying technology that is all the cryptocurrencies, and we're like, okay, well, this isn't just a finance thing. It's going to eventually change so many different industries. That's when I started to feel more comfortable, started taking investment and looking into more cryptocurrencies myself, because the scope of it is so wide, it's so revolutionary on so many levels. Then I'm like, okay, well, as long as I have the patience, things are going to catch up.
Yep. Lamar, you approached this originally from the software perspective, right? Developer, programmer, you were into the software, into the guts of it all before it became this trading fad. And I'm just talking about the coins part of it. But what were you doing where suddenly the light bulb went off and you said, I get where this is going and I want to be a part of it?
I think when I first read the Satoshi white paper, the Bitcoin white paper, it showed me freedom. As a software developer, being somebody who actually has a finance degree, and I'm a software developer as well, there's no better marriage of two disciplines than Bitcoin. But what I saw really was the freedom behind it, and that's what really got me into it. And then because I'm a software developer and we came from a place of experimentation, we've done a lot of these things with blockchain, right? So I've built companies where we've done stuff with banks like JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, and that all of that together started letting me see, if people talk to me now, they say I'm a Bitcoin maximalist, but it's not because of some religion, right? It's because I've tried a lot of these things that a lot of these companies are doing, and I used to even talk to companies and try to walk them off the edge, because what you realize is that Bitcoin is not hot sauce. You just can't put it on stuff and make it taste good. You know what I'm saying? Or the other analogy I use, it's like a lot of people look at Bitcoin, not even Bitcoin, but cryptocurrency as this tool, blockchain, let's say that. Blockchain is this tool, but it's like taking a hammer and trying to eat a salad. Yeah, you could do it, right? But it's not the most efficient use of the tool. And I think a lot of people, as they go through this experimentation, the people who have done it a lot before are probably where I am, and more of a Bitcoin maximalist from that mindset, because they've tried these things and they know what the limitations are from the technology itself. And I think that as an investor, you have to start understanding it from that standpoint. But I always say, try everything you possibly can, because it's not hurting nobody to go out here and experiment, right? We should be experimenting. We should be trying new things. We should be trying to get into it and try to do whatever we can with it, you know what I mean? So
yep. So I love that analogy, eating a salad with a hammer. You'll chip a few teeth in the process. But why would a company like a JP Morgan, what would they be doing with the blockchain? What makes sense about the blockchain and the way our financial assets are managed by huge banking institutions?
Well, see, that's the thing. It's and I always tell this story because it defines why it's very difficult for these companies to understand how they can use it. I was speaking at a conference with some of the largest global trade banks in the world and the leaders from them. And I did my pitch and I thought I had killed it. And I was like, yeah, that was really dope. I go outside and one of the heads of one of the largest global trade banks in Europe comes to me and he says, I hear what you said about the blockchain and how we can work together and how we can share this information. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, everybody on the same chain, it adds some efficiencies and, going through that. And he said, and I'll say the other bank, I won't say who he was, but the other bank, he goes, well, what about Citibank? he said, so if we get on the same chain as Citibank, we can have efficiencies and we can work together. And I was like, he said, but I was like, yeah. He was like, yeah, but we want to kill Citibank. And so what you start to understand is that the technology lends towards collaboration, but most companies don't want collaboration with their competitors. So if you don't want collaboration, you wind up wanting a silo type of effect. And so why do you need a technology that connects all of them and creates those types of efficiencies? It makes sense from a Bitcoin perspective because, again, we're talking about a global environment, a global currency, a global money where we don't have to trust. That's the thing, it's trustlessness. We don't have to trust each other. But within a system like a company, like you're going to trust some of the people, and if you're giving your competitors some of your information, a lot of that starts to break down. Right?
Yeah, that's why we were talking about it earlier. That whole arbitrage of the barter system and the auction system in the stock market is really based upon that. But the promise of DeFi, decentralized finance, the promise of an open ledger, Gigi, for lack of a better word, I think that's what folks call it, that's a very big deal across industries. You mentioned music as one of them. I think about real estate, where I can see the provenance of that piece of real estate, the deed, who's owned it. Right now, you go to buy a house or close on a house or sell something, there's reams of paperwork. There's hours of it. The blockchain, it's like, I got it. I can see right to the bottom of it. How have you sort of been learning that through your program at school and your own explorations?
Well, I think it really goes back to like third parties, really. And so being able to essentially have access to that information and not relying on that information to be housed by a specific third party is where they've kind of shined the light on that for us in learning in school.
Yep. And ultimately, what do you hope to do with the degree that you get? What do you want to be when you grow up?
Well, I think the degree for me was mainly empowerment. It's something that I've always wanted to do. Coming into corporate America straight out of college was definitely a rude awakening, right? Everything I had focused on was like getting to college and, things would kind of take care of themselves. But then, you move into the city, you get your first apartment or whatever, and life kind of smacks you in the face. And so it's always been a rule of mine to kind of do whatever I can to help elevate myself. And so I had that dream of going to get my MBA, obviously put it on hold as life happened. But then, 2020 happened. Social injustices came back into play. A lot of chatter about what, minority executives look like and percentages of companies were really being talked about at the time. And I actually remember talking to Oliver one morning about how do you feel? Like, what are you doing? He's like, I got an idea. And I was like, okay, that's great. I was like, I'm going to go to business school. Finally, I've been waiting on it too long. And so I jumped on that. And so for me, the goal of it was one, to fill gaps in, where I think people might be able to poke at it in the future when on that path to, eventually helping run a company. But then financial literacy played a huge role into that, because at that time, while I was improving in my career, I really didn't know what to do with my money. I was like, many people, spending it on stupid things. I had a sneaker closet that that flowed over, and a friend was like, how much money you have in there that you just never use? And so that's kind of what started it off for me. Yep. So a lot of things.
Yeah. Big Mark, again, you started in software development, but you came to this very early. You took the time to read the Satoshi white paper. And for folks that don't know what that is, the creator of Bitcoin put together, or the creators put together, a very long white paper. It's a research paper on the efficacy, the usage of Bitcoin, the fact that there would only be 21.4 million, never mind. 21, excuse me. Growing by the second.
That wasn't actually even in the white paper. People don't know that.
Okay, I made that up.
Yeah.
We'll take it off the website. No, but to your point, the point is, you really were learning it from the inside and from the software development perspective, but then you realized there was investment opportunities, and you created the Black Bitcoin Billionaires group. What's that? Tell us that part of the journey from when you were a software developer to, there is a path here and a potential path to growing wealth and teaching people about it.
Right, yeah. So I taught myself how to program in a community that most people would consider the hood, right? And so
Lexington,
in Lexington, Kentucky. Yeah. And the street that our office was on is called Georgetown Street. And anybody that comes to Lexington, anybody that comes, if you say Georgetown Street, people like, don't go down there. So our office is right there. I live real close. My church real close. That's my neighborhood. And so as soon as I figured out how to do it and learn how to program, and I saw the freedom, that's really what it was, then the first thing I did, I started programming, but I got online and started making videos to tell people in my neighborhood, like, look, man, like, this is new. If you had a chance to buy the internet in 1996, if it had a price on it, this is the new thing. This is happening. Of course, everybody thought I was crazy. I even taught a class at the community college. I asked them, could I come do a free class? People came to the class. Matter of fact, one of the people at the class was one of the early employees at Coinbase, and he's doing very well now. Because of that class, that's what he got him into it. And so, and he hooks me up all the time. He hits me up. But from that point, I've always been trying to get the information, because what I understand, if you're not intentional about getting information into certain communities, it'll never get there. And it's not from a discriminatory process. It's just because the people who have the information don't never come to that community. So here I am. I got to tap in a little bit to this information that wasn't coming. So I felt like it was on me to be the prophet and tell everybody about it. And so
What year are we talking here?
This is 2013. And the funny thing is, I heard about it. I never knew the date when I heard about it until I went on Facebook and saw the picture of the place where I learned about it. I had to use I'm like my mom. I always say, like, the older people, they use Facebook to keep remembering stuff. I guess I'm an older person now.
Isn't that the point?
Yeah, I guess I'm an older person. I timestamped me being out in front of this investor's office who asked me about Bitcoin, and I kind of was like, what are you talking about? That was 2011. And so I didn't realize it was that much time before I built the wallet in 13, right? I didn't realize it was that much time, because when you're an entrepreneur, you just going. You don't know about time. You have the sun don't go up or down because you're always awake. But anyway, so that was that early, and I was telling people about it in 2013, 2014, I did that class. And then what happened is I kept teaching. People knew I taught. They asked me to come teach. And then I wound up teaching. I got 24,000 people to join me and my buddy on Facebook. So we had a group of like 24,000. And then when Clubhouse comes out, one of the people from that group was like, Lamar, you got to go on Clubhouse. This reminds me of what we used to do back on Facebook. And I was like, all right, cool. So I get on, and that club grew to 100. We got 100, almost 60,000 people now. So it's like, and I'm just still doing the same thing, still just teaching. And then that was Black Bitcoin Billionaire. And then that led me to now I'm teaching out in Marcy. Shout out to Marcy Projects. We doing for the Bitcoin Academy. Because of me teaching. So it's like me learning the skill of programming. And if this is a wealth building thing for all y'all young cats out there, young people, cats. That sounds so old, boy. For all the young folk out there, listen, get a skill, right? Like, educate yourself and get a marketable skill. And that will help you build wealth faster than anything else, because that is the real wealth. What you know and who you know is your real wealth. Like, real talk, because that'll help you get the money. Like, before, I was in the hood, like, literally, everybody knows that. So that, me knowing what I know and learning and meeting the people I met, that actually allowed me to get the money to start investing in other things. So, yeah, so that, for all of y'all out there, understand that you don't have to have money to get wealth. Your wealth is in your knowledge base, and you can just spend time doing that. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, but remember the other thing he said, which is, I just started teaching it. I just wanted to share the information.
Right.
I wanted to share that with people in my neighborhood so they could get access to it too.
and nobody listened.
Right, of course. Well, a couple
Nobody
people
listened.
probably did, but
Man,
2013,
I had a guy.
Bitcoin was $2.
You know what's funny? I had a guy. I told him about it. It was $250. He loved me. He one of them guys. Like, man, you was always so smart when we was kids. I got 50,000. What can I do with it? I tell him, get some Bitcoin, right? He said $250. He said, I don't know. It go to 600. Guess what he says to me? Oh man, I wish I got it at $250, man. I wish I bought. I was like, get you some now, man. Like, it's still, the freedom's still there. It goes to 1,500. Oh man, I wish I got it. He did this all the way up till it got to 17,000. He's like, man, I'm gonna finally go and buy me some Bitcoin.
They say in this business that the stock market, but you could apply the same thing to the crypto market, is the only place where when things go on sale, people run the other way, right? And when things get really high, everybody wants to buy it. because, well, at the end of the day, we're ruled by our animal spirits. But you became an early investor in these things, and then you've watched several waves of Bitcoin's great rises and great falls. And folks, if you want to look at an interesting chart, look at Bitcoin over the last 12 years. But know this, the return over time is far greater than any asset that's ever been created. I'm not saying buy it or sell it or do whatever. Just look at the return. And then up until a certain point, I think it was up like 500,000% in a decade or something like we've never seen before with any other asset class. But you, again, Lamar, you approached it from understanding the technology and what it could do, but you've watched a lot of people rush in, get wiped out, and then rush back out, only to rush back in again. When you look at the manias and the great rises and falls, and you watch that behavior, what have you learned just by watching that?
I think the biggest part for me and the reason why I hold, right now I have no Bitcoin. I'm going to say that publicly every time. I did a cartwheel, all the Bitcoin fell out in my front yard, and my dad mowed over it. Take it for what it is.
I hope your lawn is very big.
Yeah, lawn's pretty big. My dad mowed over it. It's a long story. But the reason why you hold on to assets, and going back to the young lady that asked that question earlier, is because you understand the value. Value doesn't represent price. And like, once you establish a value, right, then the price just tells you if it's expensive or if it's cheap. So it's like the value that I see in having a currency and just a asset that is free from third parties, that is censorship resistant, that is a trustless asset, that allows me to do what and program and do whatever I want with my money. I can send it anywhere around the globe. The fact that there's a provable limited supply, that I only have to trust the code, that is extremely valuable to me. So until the price of that gets above that value that it is to me, then I would not sell it. And I think that's one of the big things you have to understand. I think people like Warren Buffett would call it intrinsic value. You have to find the intrinsic value of something, so then you can establish if it's on sale. Because you can't tell if something is on sale if you don't know the actual value.
That's absolutely true.
Right? So the value of water to a man in the desert is a lot higher than a man in the ocean. Right? That's the biggest part. So you have to establish value for yourself. So when people say, Lamar, you recommend me buying it? I say, listen, it's not my house or my spouse. That's what you have to understand. Right? Like, your house and your spouse is going to determine what you wind up doing in the long run. Because I can't, if your wife's going to beat you up for buying this, then you probably shouldn't buy it. Your value structure is a little different than mine. You get what I'm saying? I think everybody just has to look within themselves. But that's the reason why I educate, because it's not about recommendations. It's about giving people enough knowledge, and what Tyrone said about empowering people to make decisions for themselves. It's not about being lemmings or sheep and following people. It's about you within yourself getting enough information and having enough scope of information so that you can make decisions and then live with those decisions, right? And I think that's really what it boils down to for me.
I 1,000% agree with you. You just say it so much better than I do. But really, it is about what your own situation is, and it starts with education. We don't tell people to buy, sell, hold, or do anything like that. We just tell them how to think about it, so then they can make the right decision for them. So in your cohort, Gigi, both at school and in your friend community, what is the attraction, fascination, interest in cryptocurrency as a whole?
Super high. I mean, a lot of kids are pouring in to enroll just for that concentration. I think within New York, there's probably 5 schools with MBA programs or just programs around it, and it's growing rapidly. If you're online or on LinkedIn, there are online courses almost being offered by every single school. A lot of them are free as well. But I would definitely just start with books. One of the easiest books, or the best books I've read, is just The Story of Blockchain by Omar Malkin. And it's just the perfect amount of context with explanation and not a lot of backstory or people's personal point of views on it. But there's definitely a lot of interest. And in every class, they make sure to say that they're not providing an investment advice or advising anybody on it based on what is taught within the class.
Sure.
Can I say something about that real quick?
Please.
I think people are extremely excited about it because of the hope and the hype. And I always say there's one letter that separates hope and hype, and that's why. And so you have to, when you get into hype, it's like, why, right? Why is it so hyped? Where's my man at? We were talking about it earlier. It's because there's a psychological attachment when you put your money into something, right? And so even if it's not great, you want it to come. If the price goes down, you want it to come back, and you want to try to tell everybody about the greatness of it and everything like that. You get what I'm saying? And so it gets people excited because now you got all these evangelists out here just trying to get their money back. You get what I mean? It's not about the tech. It's not about what you can do. And so you got this hope that people like, oh, I hope I get my money back. But so if I hope I'm going to get my money back, I'm going to hype it as much as I possibly can because that's my why I'm hyping it. You get what I'm saying? So
Yeah, we call that the greater fool theory.
that's
around here.
exactly what I was going to. I don't like to call people fool too much, but you know what I'm saying.
Somebody calls them the greater fool theory around here. Go ahead, Gigi.
To your point about understanding the tech, I've seen people who have gone and see the lows of Bitcoin or lows of cryptocurrencies and not understanding that tech and not understanding the why, not understanding the history or the vision of it has put them in a frenzy. Right. And for me, during that whole time where people were in a frenzy, I just deleted it off my phone. It's like my accounts are still there, but I just stopped looking at it. I was like, I'm not trying to move this for any reason. This is a long-term thing for me. To be, honest with everyone, those aren't even for me, really. Like, I'm trying to do something else with this, and so those are for people who aren't even here yet, to be honest with you, so I don't need to look at it every day. But no, not yet.
I like you saying those ain't already.
Yeah.
What you saying.
So there's two things, right? There's FOMO, the fear of missing out, and there's folia, the fear of losing it all, right? Those two extremes,
Yeah.
right? So the people you're talking about, a lot of them are, I wouldn't do that, I don't want to lose everything. And then the other people is, I want to do that because I saw how much he made doing that.
Yeah.
And I want to get on that too. And those are two very different extremes that are pulling us apart on the inside.
Some of the richest Bitcoiners are people that lost their wallet.
Right?
You understand what I'm saying?
I do understand what you're saying.
Like, people wait, oh, I forgot. Don't I got some Bitcoin over there? And then you see them, and it's like, oh, my gosh, I got some Bitcoin over there. You know what I mean? Because that forces them to hold on to it for a little while. But that's too much luck, because guess what they probably wind up doing? They found it when it was $1,500 and sold it.
Yep.
Because they don't understand the value, right? Oh, somebody asked a question.
Yeah, quick question. Can we maybe talk narrative real quick? Because like Web3 is such a quote-unquote thing, right? It varies very differently from Tim Berners-Lee's definition and that piece. So that's one. We can hit on oracles as well, because a lot of people have a lot of hope for blockchain, but the system only can talk to the system and verify the system. The oracle challenge is still there, and that's where a lot of manipulation happens and exploits, like we see every other day, 50 million, 100 million, $1 billion gone. So can we touch on those two topics?
Absolutely. And we were talking about this at InvestFest back in Atlanta in August, I believe it was. We were having this very same conversation in front of a lot of people. All right, let's set the stage. Web3, you want to take it?
Yeah. I'll let you do Web3. What you think about Web3?
What do I think
Well,
about
let's do a quick explanation for folks that may not be familiar with what it means. And if you can't, I will do my best. And if I can't, we're going to grab somebody here from the crowd.
Yeah, so my definition of Web3 is anything that leverages blockchain. So it's just like
Blockchain, Internet of Things, too, right?
Blockchain, Internet of Things. So Web3, for example, any social media that leverage Web3, things of that nature.
Right.
Is that
So
the
Web 1
definition?
was the early Tim Berners-Lee, right?
Yeah.
This was Netscape and the browser, right? Web 2 is the iPhone, the app world, right?
As
Do I
we
have
know
this
it
right?
now.
Right? We're in Web 2 now. Web 3 is non-fungible tokens, the blockchain, the Internet of Things, connected devices, all these things.
I don't
connected.
like Web3. I don't like the name. It's not, to me, they say it's decentralized, and the way it's built technically, for most of the people that see it, it's not decentralized. And I think that's what people really want. It's not a centralized client-server architecture. It's more of a decentralized system. That's why they say blockchain, right? Because blockchain's supposed to be decentralized. A lot of these blockchains out here are not decentralized. We've seen that. Binance Smart Chain, we saw what happened with that. Solana keeps shutting down every other month. Even from an Ethereum standpoint, going to proof of stake actually makes it more centralized than it used to be. So when I started seeing it, I'm like, I don't think we're at Web3 yet, but I'll let the media have their day.
Yeah, we need something, Lamar.
Yeah,
We
you
got
gotta-
something to
yeah,
chew
you
on.
got to,
Okay,
yeah.
but Lamar, you bring up a very good point, and it really
So you're
speaks
talking
to
like
what you're saying
metaverse
with Oracle.
questions, or is that where you're headed with
What's
it?
that?
You talking about metaverse? That's what he's asking?
He was talking about your question.
I was speaking more so towards the Oracle.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's talking about the second question.
Yeah. Okay.
Blockchain trilemma is already there. Then you introduce trust. So when people say it's permissionless and trustless and decentralized, none of those things really mean anything because you have to introduce trust with data feeds. Data feeds can be manipulated.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't repeat that because it was way
Yeah,
above
I'll say it.
my
I'll
level.
do it.
But let Lamar explain.
So basically what he's talking about is the Oracle problem. When you start introducing oracles into a decentralized system, what you're basically doing is entering trust into something that's supposed to be trustless. So for instance, like the real estate example, I was talking to you about this. So the real estate example, the problem with the real estate example is that say there's some coordinates that you put into the blockchain and say whoever owns these coordinates owns this piece of land, right? What winds up happening, though, is that whoever's putting that information in, you have to trust them that they got those coordinates right. Because if they don't get it right and then you show up and half your land's gone, who do you go back and talk to? You still have to go back to the same oracle. And if you're willing to trust the oracle, why do you need a blockchain? You just might as well use their own database. You get what I'm saying?
Now I get it.
That's the oracle. That's the oracle situation.
So I think the difference is you have to understand like kind of what the way Web 2 works right now and how you're not getting anything out of Web 2 and how you are the product. How you are the product in Web 2. The fraction of whatever piece of that token you're going to have to pay that person who's making those coordinates or setting those boundaries is minuscule compared to the amount of money that you're going to get or the returns that you're going to see compared to what Google gives you now or what Facebook gives you now or what Snapchat or Twitter give you now. Like that's the difference. It's like in Web 2, you get absolutely nothing. In Web 3, you get the majority.
I'm going to tell you why you get nothing. Because in Web 3, in the way it is now, Caleb he's the guy that's putting the stuff on the chains. He uses Ethereum. He puts it on Ethereum. Then he takes the same data, puts it on Solana, takes the same data, puts it on Cardano. The problem is that when you have a real world asset and a digital system and you're putting the information from the real world into the digital, he just multiplied that land 3 times. So somebody goes in on this chain and buys it, somebody goes on that chain and buys it, somebody goes on that chain and buys it, and Caleb runs off to the Poconos. Guess what? Guess what happens? They all show up at Caleb's land to take it and start building on it, and there's 3 people with 3 contracts that all said they paid. Who owns it? Right. See, that's the problem. That's why when you start trying to associate real-world assets into a digital space and the digital space doesn't control all the rules, you enter into a situation where you have to trust. And if you have to trust, there's no reason to use a hammer to eat the salad. You get what I'm saying? That's what I wanted to break down a little bit earlier, but I didn't know we was going to. Thank you over there, Mr. Web3 guy.
Yeah, he just took it up a couple of notches.
Yeah, he took it up 3 notches.
All right, let's bring it back down a little bit for guys like me and talk about the difference between smart coins and so-called dumb coins, or maybe that's not the nice way to call them anymore. But there's a difference, right? There's a reason that people think Ethereum might have a future. You needed to buy NFTs. There's a software solution problem going on there. But to your best ability, Lamar, or Gigi, jump in, either one of you, explain to us the real difference between the way some of these popular coins function. What's a smart coin? What could it possibly do? And what's a coin that you just trade for fun?
So basically, most people get excited, and this is what's funny, about automation. They get excited about being able to automate accounting transactions. And so Ethereum allows for that, right? I can create an asset, and the contract handles everything. I can pay into it, a contract issues or adds me to a record, and it does everything. People don't understand it's just how computers work. Like, you create a function, you send some stuff into the function. The part that you want is the decentralization. You want it to be where you don't necessarily have to trust anyone to execute that code. And that's why people are so excited about Ethereum and these other world computers, is because computation is no longer in a single source, and it's at a single point. The problem is there's a lot of technical issues with trying to do that in a distributed nature. And as you notice, and I had a theory, I put it up on Twitter a while ago, but it basically is showing how the further we move towards efficiency in those types of systems, the more you'll move back towards databases, because centralization is the most efficient database. The only way you're going to be efficient is through centralized databases. If you keep trying to fight on transaction speed, if you keep trying to fight on efficient transactions, if you keep trying to fight on those from those parameters, you're just going to move back. And that's exactly what Solana is, Binance Smart Chain. And you're seeing they're taking some of the market share away from Ethereum, which kind of introduced that idea into the market. I think those things are going to be challenges that all of them deal with. And you and I were talking about this too. We're talking about how Gateway, HP, like what I'm talking about is the PC era. Y'all remember
The old PC era, 1980s.
Y'all remember the old PC era? So what happened in the PC era? A lot of those PCs went away, right? Because they started to consolidate because they wanted cheaper, faster, better. That was the idea. Because what the PC in and of itself was supposed to be a utility, something that helps you to make more money. These systems are supposed to be that as well. But if it's costing you ever much more money to continue to use these systems, you're going to move to a system that is cheaper economically, correct? So what happens? That means that the ones that are getting all the play now, if they get too expensive, people will move to Binance Smart Chain. And if Binance Smart Chain gets too expensive, we'll move to Solana. And so what'll happen is the prices should come down just like they did in trading. You understand that. It's like you keep getting to a point where everything starts moving towards zero. And those are the things I try to get people to understand. If you're looking at this stuff as an investment, stop looking at it so much as an investment and look at it as a technology, right? Just look at it as pure technology, because when you start investing in it and making bets on it, you have to understand the economics of how systems work like that. And I think a lot of people don't. And I think that's what gets people in trouble. And so if you want to use it, cool. If you want to use it as a database, I think there's good ways to try to figure out how to use it in a more decentralized type of a database system, but that's not something you bet on and try to put your life savings into.
To your point, you said you sold your Bitcoin and fell out in a cartwheel.
Yeah.
But did it outlast its utility from your technological point of view?
So
not a useful
But
coin?
I think that's the point. I think just like the internet protocol of TCP/IP, we don't change that a lot. It's a foundational protocol. We don't care about it. Most people in here don't know anything about it. It's very boring. Nobody cares. Nobody's like, oh man, that TCP/IP is up today. Nobody's doing any of that. But guess what? Everything we're doing in here, every single person that's connected is using that protocol. Bitcoin in and of itself is a very simple protocol. It's not doing a whole lot. It's really boring, and it's doing what it's supposed to do. So for me, Bitcoin is doing what it's supposed to do because that's what it was meant to do. A lot of these other ones, which I don't ever poo-poo them, because I love the fact that people are trying to think outside the box and trying to do things. But the thing is that they invented a hammer again. Nail some stuff into a wall, but quit trying to eat salad, right? I think that's the part. And I think more people, and what's happening is in the Bitcoin space, early on, it was developers and cypherpunks and libertarians, right? Early in this Ethereum space, it's marketers, and then some developers. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That changes the entire paradigm, and so people are on the hype and the hope, and they breathing it all in, and not realizing they just high as heck right now. You know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah, and it's been the tough crash for a lot of people. The crypto winter has washed a lot of people out who thought that this thing would just keep going to the moon, as they say. In terms of Web3 and the stuff that is coming up in your program, is that something that they're introducing into the knowledge, into the master's program there? Are they thinking and helping you guys think through how you can be able to apply this in that world?
Yeah, so one of the classes I took was called Blockchain Disruptors, really. So they kind of go through every single industry, whether it is like Brave, which is trying to replace Google and Safari. That's like part of that. Every single industry, they show you different companies, which ones have succeeded, which ones have failed, why they've succeeded and why they failed. Talk about like scalability. What is it going to take to get adoption, like mass adoption right now? If you look at one of those adoption bell curves, which I'm sure people have seen before, trying to mark where we're at in essentially mass adoption in a specific industry for a specific product. So they definitely are looking at that. I think NFTs, and not specifically NFTs, but just smart contracts. They're trying to push a lot of people to become lawyers to really try to tackle what this smart contract
What define smart contract for us? Because I think people throw that word around a lot. But what is a smart contract?
A smart contract, you're gonna help me out if I butcher this. But a smart contract is just a set of rules that, if met, whatever you set those set of rules to do will happen instantaneously.
Right. It'll trigger
Trigger it instantaneously. So if don't have a good example off the top of my head right now, but yeah, that's what a smart contract is.
Okay.
So like if you reach 100,000 followers, someone pays you $5,000, and the second you hit those 100,000 followers, you'll get $5,000. And so,
You did a good job.
huh?
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah,
good.
that was a real good one.
Yeah.
But the problem is you still got an oracle. Who's going to tell them you reached 100,000 followers? I'm just messing with you. But no, that was really good. That was actually really good.
And so, just trying to show people where the job opportunities and careers lie within Web3 and how each industry is trying to adopt that.
Brave new world. Lamar, I want to turn to you and what you've been able to do through your understanding of this technology. And as an investor, you're an entrepreneur. You're a programmer, yes, but you're really an entrepreneur. I've heard of, every time I keep learning about the different businesses that you've started, and that's sort of in your DNA. But you've been able to use what you've been able to grow in this world to grow other businesses, right?
Yes.
To become an investor in other spaces. You've diversified, as we say in our business. So take us through that journey of, you're a developer, now you're getting into this coin. You got in at a very early age, at an early age in the coin and an early age for yourself. What kinds of doors has it opened for you?
Man, real estate, I have a hemp company. I'm an entrepreneur, and I definitely still have some stocks. As to what I was telling the young man, I started investing in stocks at 17 and penny stocks and lost everything and my dad's money. And it and it made me actually go say, who's a good investor? And I found Warren Buffett, which then I found Benjamin Graham, and then I read The Intelligent Investor. So I was telling my man, like, go get The Intelligent Investor and try to learn some value investing stuff. Like, it's just something that I learned. But yeah, like this, what it really has done for me, which is crazy, is me understanding. I was talking to a guy the other day, associate director for the Fed, matter of fact, because I met him at MIT. And I always think about that. Me coming from the northwest side of Lex, like, speaking at MIT twice is what it's done for me. You dig what I'm saying? Like, that's the crazy stuff. Like, I've been to Japan. I've been to China. I've been to Austria to speak, right? I'm speaking to the heads of global trade banks all over the world. Like, that's what it's done for me. As far as investment, yeah, I'm going to invest. I don't like saying it because some people don't understand when you say you're a hustler. I'm a hustler. Like, I get money. I like getting, put it this way, I like getting money. I like making
Secure the bag. You got to.
I like,
We're-
no, but I know
We're
I
out here
enjoy,
working.
I enjoy doing that. I was telling my man I used to throw parties in college. Like, I'm just that kind of person. So I'm not like some of the Bitcoin maxes, like, don't invest in anything else but Bitcoin because that would be boring to me. Like, I just enjoy, like, being in business. But Bitcoin itself and just learning a skill. And that's why I don't like to, like, just focus it on Bitcoin for everybody from a skills perspective, because I know there's young people out there right now who, they might not get into Bitcoin, but get you a skill that you enjoy doing, and it'll open up windows for you that you'll be able to travel the world on somebody else's dime, too. That's what's crazy, right? I've been able to take my wife places, and somebody else pay for it, right? So I don't even have to trick, you know what I mean? But it's not tricking if it's your wife, just to let y'all know. If it's your wife, it's not tricking. But I don't even have to pay for it. Like, to me, that's powerful. That's extremely, extremely powerful. And I think just having access, and that's the reason why I was intentional, brother, because people are not intentional. And so this information hardly gets into certain communities. So as soon as if you love, like I always say, if you love somebody, you'll tell your family about it, right? Like, if you love them, you'll tell them about something good. So my whole thing is, if y'all have skills and things y'all can share with your community, like, please share them, because nobody else is going to do it. You got to do it. Like, real talk. Like, you have to be the one. If you have, like, this right here, shout out to my man. Like, what's going on with the Come Up series. All of this is, like, powerful. So I feel like that's what it did for me, man. It literally allowed me to, like, do things I would have never thought I would be able to do.
I walked through InvestFest with you in Atlanta. There was 12,000 people there. You were a celebrity. You have a lot of followers, a lot of people who admire you. who have learned a lot from you, but it's because you start from that place of education and that place of knowledge sharing. So I've just appreciated getting to know you and watching what you've been able to do there. But for the folks out here who are now thinking, Lamar, I'm going to lean on your expertise here. You've created your own wallet, I'm sure. You secured it through multiple protocols. None of us will ever be able to figure it out. I hope you don't ever forget the passwords. But for folks here who want to start investing, that investing journey in some coin, token, or system, or even an NFT, but let's stick with the coins and the tokens for now.
Yeah.
What's the most reasonable, easiest way for them to access that market in a way that you think is trustworthy?
Bitcoin is easiest.
But
And
through like a broker, a Coinbase, or do you have to make your own
the easiest
wallet?
thing, I think the easiest way is to like use some system. It can be, I'm not gonna say that other name you said, but I'll say Cash App. You can use Cash App and dollar cost average.
That's one of our favorite terms around here, dollar cost average.
And I say dollar cost average with money that you spending on something you weren't supposed to be spending it on. Like, people always got money they spend on. This one young lady said she spends too much money on crab legs. So, like, take your crab leg money that you're spending every week, get you some imitation crab, put the rest of it on Bitcoin. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I
just
totally get
that
it.
kind of thing. Like, you don't have to go out here and throw all of your money into Bitcoin or into any of these cryptocurrencies. I think the easiest way is to just get started slowly but surely and stack. Because the biggest thing that I see is there's a church that's real close to here called Trinity. And they started buying land, I think, 1697 in Manhattan. That church is worth $6 billion now because there was a limited supply of Manhattan, and they started buying it up. It's the same thing with Bitcoin. There's a limited supply. There's only 21 million Bitcoin, and as this becomes more and more global, you owning your little share of quote-unquote digital Manhattan is a very powerful thing, and I think you don't have to be too crazy with it. And if you know how to trade, like the man earlier, my man's from StockTwits, do what you do. I don't know how to do all of that, so I just real slow, real easy, and just keep it moving, right?
Yep. Yeah, like I said, the tortoise sometimes beat the hare in this game, at least from my perspective, because I'm not that fast. Recommendations. What do you recommend out here for the folks to read? And it can be, doesn't have to be something from the syllabus, but what inspired you? What do you recommend to the folks out here who are looking to get a little bit more information, Gigi?
Definitely the story of blockchain. That one broke it down for me the easiest.
The story of blockchain.
The story of blockchain, Omar Malkin, Malkan. The easiest one.
All right, Big Mar.
Bitcoin Standard and Bitcoin in Black America and Bitcoin in the American Dream, because I wrote that one.
All right.
And you're
That one too.
You still have your terrific show, right?
Huh? Yeah, we still do the Genesis block. Y'all come through that. Matter of fact, the next one I do is Bit Boy's coming to my show, because I did his show for him. So we're gonna have him on. And there was
That?
Caleb didn't realize, like, listen, there was fire on that stage at the Invest Fest. It was like, no, real fire. Not like, oh, this is dope. It was like actual fire on the stage.
That was
But he and I have had conversations like since then, and thank you for doing that, moderating that thing, because it helped us to get together, and now we kind of like, talking to folks. So.
got a little MMA in there, but you guys are smart and adults. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for the knowledge, Lamar. You've been such a good friend to Investopedia.
Yeah,
So glad we've gotten to know each other. So good to meet you. Go Gate.
Yeah, go Gate.
Welcome, Gigi.
Yeah,
we went to the same college.
Yeah, we
and
did.
you guys stick around a little bit after if folks have other questions.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Lamar Wilson.